Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our year-end reminders webinar today. Before we get started, we do have a special announcement. Today is Tim's birthday, so we are so grateful for Tim and his leadership here at Harvest Point, and we had to make sure to share that good news with everyone. So happy birthday, Tim, and we hope your day is extra special. If you want to go ahead and wish Tim a happy birthday, you can go over to our social media pages, and we do have a special birthday post over there for him on LinkedIn and Facebook, so definitely check that out. All right, well, my name is Lauren Wegman, and I am the Director of Marketing and Client Care here at Harvest Point, and I have the pleasure of getting to host this webinar with you all today. So thanks for having me. We do have a brief agenda. First, we will have an office update from Tim. Then he will hand it over to Colin to provide us with a brief market update. And then lastly, we will end our time together with an advisor panel discussion, which will be filled with lots of important year-end reminders, considerations, and just updates for you all heading into 2026. As many of you may know, faith-filled generosity is a core value here at Harvest Point and near and dear to us. So for each event, we do partner with different organizations that are local to our community. And for this webinar, we are partnering with Love Inc. Des Moines. And on behalf of your attendance, Harvest Point will be donating to Love Inc. So Love Inc. is an organization that fosters that collaboration with our local churches to help provide the resources to our neighbors in need. So it's a great organization, and thank you for tuning in today to help us support this organization. As a reminder, we do also currently have our food drive running. So if you are local to the Des Moines area and you want to stop into our office, we are accepting donations until next Wednesday, and we will make sure to get all of those food donations over to Waypoint Resources and their food pantry. And then one final reminder, if you have any questions today, whether it's for either of our advisors, we will have a panel at the end of this webinar as well as a Q&A. So please send any of those questions to info@harvestpointwm.com, and we will make sure to get those answered. Without further ado, I will hand it over to our founder, Tim.
Thank you, Lauren, and just want to extend the welcome today and appreciate the birthday wishes. My daughters this morning were excited, but maybe not for the reason I was hoping. I came out and they said, "Happy birthday, Dad!" But kind of, let's get that out of the way. Now, on to the important thing. When does the cake arrive? Because they were very interested in when we get to start having cake. So it's going to be a long day for them, making them wait all the way until after dinner tonight, use their good manners at the dinner table. But my 5-year-old did inform me additionally that I look taller today than I did yesterday. So I'm going to take that as a win, I guess. But I appreciated that observation from her. But no, we're glad that you're with us today, and my privilege to provide a little bit more of an office update. As you know, Harvest Point exists to faithfully guide and equip our clients to wisely steward the wealth that has been entrusted to them. And I say, you probably know that because many of you have been at our events or obviously are familiar with our firm because you have been clients for quite some time. However, we do on the call today have a number of folks who are not clients. They might be guests joining us or even first-time attendees, newer clients. And so we always like to spend just a few minutes during our time together, whether it be virtually like this or in person at events, just sharing a little bit more about our organization. And so that's what we get to do today. One question that I'm often asked is why Harvest Point? And so we're fortunate at Harvest Point to have 72 years of combined financial services industry experience with our folks that we have working here with us. And really, we like to phrase it, we help clients up to and all the way through retirement, ideally. And sometimes we'll even call that redeployment. It's our privilege to sit with clients at that cross section of, okay, our working years are done, and now we're looking out as to into the future as to what is next for us. And it's a privilege for us to have those conversations with you and make plans accordingly. Where we see folks fail in retirement outside of the financial side of things is when they don't have a plan, when they are simply just retiring from something and not retiring to something as well. And so we think that's really important. We're fortunate that our clients have stuck with us. We have an average client tenure of 18 years. When you call our office, you speak with an individual. We are not a 1-800 number. We do have a 1-800 number in connection with our back office, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, just in case you were to call outside of our hours. So we appreciate that support from them. But we know that it is a value for you to have direct, face-to-face, even eyeball to eyeball contact as best we can. And then obviously we're more than willing to accommodate and have virtual meetings if that would be more convenient, or even kind of intersperse those in to our communications. We are also very grateful, and this is the season of gratitude that we are in now, for our client retention ratio. So year over year, we have a 98% client retention ratio. We also have a 100% employee retention ratio over that same period of time. For the benefit of our existing clients, we do limit the number of new clients that we take on an annual basis. And it's very important, paramount to us, that we deliver on what we say that we're going to be delivering on for your benefit as we do financial planning for you and your family. And so therefore we thought that it's appropriate that we limit those new relationships. That being said, we do have a few more spots available for 2025 in terms of welcoming new clients in to our firm. And so we would be pleased to share more information about our firm with anyone that you might want to introduce to us. And we'll have a slide here in a minute that can have a bit more information on that and give you some direction. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a back office or an affiliate that we have partnered with, and that is LPL Financial. You'll see their names on your investment statements that you get in addition to Harvest Point Wealth Management. And but we don't often spend a lot of time talking about them. They kind of operate in the background, as they should, and we're grateful for the work that they do. They are the #1 ranked independent broker dealer for 25 years running now. They have over $2 trillion custodied on their platform, or as they define it, advisory assets serviced. And so that they know what they're doing, they know how to do it, and we have found that they have been a good partner to work with. So we're very pleased with their partnership that we have been able to be a part of now for 4.5 years running. They have 100% cyber fraud guarantee. So last year alone, they spent $500 million on technology, infrastructure, and cyber security. We are proud in today's day and age of frauds and scams that our clients have not lost a dime from their investment accounts due to unauthorized access. And that is owing to the great systems that they have put into place. It's also owing to the diligence that you've put forth. If that ever were to happen, if someone were to breach their systems, LPL Financial systems, and access your accounts, then LPL stands by the fact that they will reimburse you for that unauthorized access. Of course, there's always exceptions to guarantees like that. In fact, that's a bad word in our industry, but they have decided to use that word as it pertains to cybersecurity. And so, but now more than ever, we must remain vigilant on cybersecurity related items. In fact, we had a presentation. You can actually go to our website and watch the replay earlier this year regarding cybersecurity. Spent a full hour on it. Incredibly great presentation and by Mark Hurley, and he gave some great action items that you can take away and hopefully implement for you and your family to make sure that you are on the up and up as it pertains to your cyber hygiene, as he likes to put it. So that would be a good one to go back and look at if you have not had a chance to do so. At Harvest Point, we have 12 people in our office. Obviously, Kathy has retired as of last year, and so she is more of counsel and staying in touch without a doubt, always asking about you. And certainly throughout the entirety of the year, I've received so many inquiries about how Kathy is doing in retirement. I'm delighted to share that she is really enjoying time with the grandkids. In fact, just last night, after I even got home from work, she brought back our oldest daughter. They got to spend some special time together after school pickup. So I know she's cherishing that time with extra time with grandkids. The 11 people on the screen here are the folks that make up our office today, and some of the best people in the industry, without a doubt. I enjoy coming to work with them every single day. And I do want to point out or highlight a few milestones in particular here from 2025. So Colin Miller, our Director of Planning, went through and completed the Certified Kingdom Advisor training and then also successfully passed the exam. So he is now a Certified Kingdom Advisor. That's the industry's only designation that sits at the crossroads of faith and finance. In fact, only about 1% of advisors nationwide hold that designation currently. So congratulations to Colin. Cameron Jensen and Lauren Wegman were both promoted this year. So congratulations to them. Cameron as our Senior Client Service Specialist and Lauren as our Director of Marketing and Client Care. And then finally, just about a month or so ago, we welcomed Lucas Den Herder as a Client Service Specialist. He is changing careers. He was a teacher for a number of years and has joined us here recently. So again, please extend the warm welcome to Lucas as well. Well, as I mentioned, if you do have someone who's interested in learning more about our firm or maybe how to take a first step, they can scan, or you can scan and then send them the link that comes up after you access that QR code on the left. So that is our discovery questionnaire. We have found that's a good starting point for anyone who might be interested in perhaps taking a next step with our office. And then similarly, the QR code on the right would be a way for you to leave us a review. So that also helps prospective clients have a better understanding of what it's like working with our firm. So we really, especially grateful for everyone who has already done that. Certainly not mandatory, by invitation only in that regard, but we are always grateful for the feedback that you give us throughout the year. Many times that is in the form of a review, and we're so grateful for that. We take that feedback very seriously, and oftentimes we are working. In fact, just earlier today, we were working on implementing an idea that came in the form of feedback from one of you. So thank you very much for that. We're very, very grateful. Well, before I turn it over to Colin Miller, who's going to provide us with more of a market update, I just want to say thank you from everyone at our office. Thank you so much for the business that you have given us this year. Thank you for allowing us into your homes, your lives, your financial lives. It's we view that as a privilege. We also view it as our calling, and we are very grateful for the opportunity to work for you. And as we like to say, you, the client, are the most important person in our company. Well, let me introduce Colin Miller. As I mentioned, he's our Director of Planning, and he is going to walk us through kind of where we stand right now in the market. As I mentioned earlier, I know a couple of you on the call today were at our Des Moines event 2 weeks ago, and so this will be a little bit of a repeat for you, but the vast majority of the people on the webinar today were not at that event. So this will be new information for you, perhaps. So again, I want to just put that caveat in there. Apologize if it's a repeat for a couple of you, but again, grateful for all of our attendees. I think we have, at last check, we have 4 different states represented on the call, clients from 4 different states on the webinar today. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Colin, for our market update.
Appreciate it, Tim, and happy birthday again. The first question I had for Tim today was, how's your back feeling between carrying the team, carrying those kids around the house? It's getting up there with age. You're going to start feeling it soon. Well, like Tim mentioned, I just wanted to provide a brief market update, and I kind of wanted to structure it with where we've been this year. 2025 has been a little bit rocky, and also kind of talk about where we're at now and maybe where we think we're headed here in the next 12 to 18 months. So this first chart that we're looking at today shows the historical performance of the S&P 500 going back to 1980. And just as a quick reminder for those who may not be aware of what the S&P 500 is it's an index tracking the stock performance of the 500 largest United States-based companies. So that's companies like NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Google. You can kind of go down the list. Those were some of the biggest few there. But a couple interesting points here. The blue bars represent what the return was during that calendar year. So for example, you can see on the right side of the chart there that last year, 2024, returned about a 16. Oh, sorry, that's 2025 when this chart was taken, about 16.5% return so far year to date. That was through this chart back in October. But those are the blue lines, and you can see the different years' returns. But then the gold diamonds show what the maximum drawdown was in a given year. So a couple of highlighting points there. You can see that really diamond there in 2008, how far that was down. 2008, the S&P 500 at one point was down almost 50%, finished closer to about 38% negative on the year. But what's really interesting is each year you see that more than likely there was some sort of pullback in the market. On average, historically, we expect to see a 14% decline on the S&P 500. Why that's important to put in perspective is even though we see a decline of on average 14% in a given year, on average, the S&P 500 still returns about 10 to 10.5% in any given year. So it's good to remember that those pullbacks happen, and they need to kind of keep the market healthy. The only time that you're ever going to finish down is if you sell down. So as always, you hear it from us all the time, allow the market time to recover. Historically, it shows that it always has. So that's kind of a look back historically on where the S&P 500 is finished. But this next chart kind of shows what has happened this year so far. So if you go back to April 8th, the S&P 500 was actually down about 19%. And most of you felt that. It was all around the tariffs news. Those were unprecedented times, things we haven't felt. But we've said that before. This time's different back in 2020 during COVID or 2022 during inflation, but the markets recovered. And so between April 8th of this year and where we're at now, the S&P 500 has recovered about 35%. And so historically, that has happened 5 other times where we've seen growth of 35% or more in 6 months. And if we look forward 12 months from that point, on average, the S&P 500 returns another 13.5% after that 35% gain. So to us, that kind of signals there's maybe still some room to run. There's some other indicators out there that show we might be having some volatility coming soon. Even earlier this week into last week, we felt a little bit of volatility. We had a few negative days there, but again, the market has time to recover. It's back up again today. So there's room for cautious optimism, but we're kind of leaning more towards that cautionary environment. And that's what this next chart here shows is the overall economic indicators that many of our analysts watch. So you can see their current indicators. The green up arrows mean room for expansion. Those are good signals that the economy is growing. Yellow means maybe there's some reason for caution, not good markings, not bad markings. And then the red X's mean bad. Interestingly, probably for the first time in a long time, if not ever, you see those 4 or 5 gray dashes in that current column there. That's because during the government shutdown, those numbers weren't reported, and there's a good chance they will never be reported either. So this chart will be updated next month, and we'd be happy to send that to you if you're interested. But what this chart does show is where we're at today and where we've been at in other recessions. So in 2020, like this year, we saw a big intra-year decline of around 20 to 25%, but we recovered. Most portfolios finished positive as long as you didn't sell. Many of you remember 2007 to 2009, that '08 recession. All those indicators were red, a couple of yellows, and every other recession going back to the 1970s is included there with a lot of red and yellow markings. So again, for us, that the indicators that we're seeing on that current column there are reason for growth, but still we've been running very hot in the market over the last 3 years. And from a historical perspective, on average, once out of every 4 years, going back 75 years, there's a negative year. 2023 was positive, 2024 was positive, 2025, as long as the growth kind of continues or at least stays stagnant, we're going to finish positive. So going into next year, if that historical trend continues, we might be due for a down year next year or the following year. But with that said, another piece of historical evidence shows that we are headed into the fourth year of the bull market. So last month, I believe it was on October 12th, we celebrated the third anniversary of the bull market. And when that has happened in the past, year 4 of the bull market tends to be good if we get through the full year. So you can see those other instances there. There was only one time where the S&P 500 was negative after 3 bull market years. One time where it didn't finish in the bull market, that was 1962 to 1966. But every other time, it's been positive, and on average about 14.6%. So when you compare that to the S&P 500 return on average of around 10, it's definitely outperforming. So these, looking at it from a historical perspective, there's reason to think there's room to run. Obviously, our friends in compliance would want me to remind you that historical performance is never indicative of what will happen in the future, but there's a lot of data here that shows there's still some room to run, but there's a lot of different bubbles that are being talked about right now. The AI bubble, we're in a little bit of an inflation bubble, some people are saying too. So those are all things we're watching on your behalf. Overall, as long as you maintain a long-term perspective of the market, we think there's optimism across the board. Yes, we'll experience some short-term volatility here in the next 12 to 18 months, more than likely, but we'll be keeping you apprised of that. We're also monitoring your portfolios on an ongoing basis. If you're a client of ours, we'll make some changes here in the next few months to some of them. And if you have any questions about any of those, we'd be more than happy to answer. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren now, who's going to set us up for our advisor panel.
Yes, thank you, Colin. Thank you for that market update. So here in just a minute, we're going to get started with our advisor panel. That email address is listed there for you again. If you have any questions that you would like us to answer, it's info@harvestpointwm.com. Before we hop into the advisor panel, Tim did have 2 quick slides with some 2026 updates he wanted to share, and then we'll transition to the advisor panel.
Thank you, Lauren. Yes, let's take a look at just some things you should be aware of, what we would call more key figures in 2026. So you may or may not have seen, but if you are receiving Social Security presently, there would be an increase of 2.8% starting in next year. It's a little below average for an increase in Social Security, but nevertheless, an increase that you'll want to be aware of for income purposes. The IRA contribution maximum. So if you are working and you have earned income and you'd like to contribute to an IRA or a Roth IRA, you are able to do that in the amount of $7,500 if you are under the age of 50. If you are over the age of 50, they have on that next line what is referred to as the catch up. So in 2026, that catch up amount is actually going to be $1,100. So a grand total of $8,600 could go into your Roth IRA, for example, and then your spouse's Roth IRA, if both of you are working, or if at least one of you is working and you have sufficient earned income for your household. So that's one thing we'll be talking about as we get into 2026 with you for planning purposes. One important figure to look at too would be 401ks. And it's kind of timely this time of year with regard to 401ks because you still have time left to increase your salary deferrals if you want to contribute more for 2025. Obviously, we have just the remainder of this month and then next month to do that. But for 2026, the maximum amount you can put in is $24,500. Again, if you are under the age of 50, for those who are over the age of 50, you can utilize the catch-up maximum of $8,000 in addition to that $24,500 in 2026. Again, there's an exception to that as well. If you happen to be between the ages of 60 and 63, you actually get an even higher catch-up provision, thanks to the Secure Act, of $11,250 next year. So that's a window too you can kind of take a look at to take advantage of. There's more details and limitations and restrictions with all of these. That'll kind of be a theme of our panel today, because obviously there's a lot of nuances with each of these factors, and it's important to look at them as it pertains to your individual situation. That's the most important thing. As I mentioned, if you are contributing to a Roth IRA, you just want to be aware of those income phase out amounts, and those are on the screen for next year as well, whether you're a single filer or a married filing jointly. We have those presented there as well. And then the last item on our screen is the annual exclusion for gifts. And this will maybe be something we touch on too on our panel, but you are able to gift $19,000 to an individual in 2025, and that figure remains the same in 2026 without having to worry about also filing a gift tax return. So take my wife and I, for example, we could give Colin, I could give Colin $19,000, and my wife could give Colin $19,000. And
I'm
he's
holding
shaking
you
his
to
head.
that. Yep,
Okay,
holding
well,
you to
I
that.
didn't
Yep.
say I would do that, Colin, but it's just hypothetical. No. So just know that you're able to do that. And, if you had 3 kids, you could do the same thing. Each of you could gift each of the 3 children $19,000 without running into that need to file a gift tax return. So that's always an important figure in that regard. Also, another set of figures to be aware of as we finish out 2025 and go into 2026 would be with regard to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as it was called. And so a lot on the screen here, but also really a lot of important information. Some, like I said, some pertain to this year, some to next. The first one is with regards to next year. So in the year 2026, there in the form of kind of returning this donation deduction that would be above the line for anyone who has made and kept track of donations. So for married filing jointly, if you have donated $2,000 or up to $2,000, you can take a deduction for that, regardless of if you itemize or not. Only about 10% of filers itemize on their tax return, according to a recent study that I saw. So it used in recent years, because of that fact, many have not been keeping track of their charitable donation receipts because it has not helped them on the tax return, in lieu of the fact that we've had a higher standard deduction amount, which is the next item down there. For this year, it's $31,500. For those who are 65 and older, it's a little bit higher than that. But next year, up to that $2,000 amount, you actually will want to keep track of your charitable receipts. So we wanted to bring that to your attention before the turn of the year. As soon as January starts, that's something that you want to be mindful of. Something that's new in 2025 that only runs through 2028, but is a below the line deduction would be what's being referred to as this $6,000 Social Security deduction. There was some banter about trying to make Social Security not taxable. That technically did not happen. Instead, and in lieu of that, they put into place a new $6,000 deduction for those who are 65 and older. So that's per person. So one member of the couple could do 6,000, and then in addition to that, another member of the couple could do 6,000 as well, for a total of 12,000. There are income limits on that, so you'd want to make sure your AGI is $150,000 or below. However, if it's above 150,000, up until you get to 250,000, they just phase you out of that. So you still get some of the deduction the closer you are to 150, and then obviously once you get to 250, you would be phased completely out of it if that were to be the case. There is also an increase in the SALT cap. So state and local tax benefit there of $40,000. That's what it used to be. It is now back up to $40,000. That reverts back down to $10,000 in 2030. So kind of a limited period of time with this one as well, but that will certainly help out on the tax return. For those who do itemize and donate, roughly the 10% estimated that itemize, there's a little bit of a haircut, a 0.5% haircut for donations starting in 2026. Can't quite figure out why they decided to implement that, but that can often be the case about these types of things. So just beware of that component. And then the estate tax threshold, talk about a small percentage of folks. It's estimated only 0.1% of families or individuals run into these estate tax issues, and that's owing to the fact that we now have permanently higher estate tax thresholds for individuals, 15 million, and for couples, 30 million. So in all likelihood, not something that you'll need to watch out for, although some could be applicable to some without a doubt. And then, benefit of this, the car loan up to $10,000 that you can have in the way of a deduction for interest on a car loan if that were to apply to you. Again, restrictions and limitations apply to that one in particular. So make sure that you dive into those details with your tax preparer. As Colin mentioned, we are not tax preparers ourselves. We do provide financial advice. Obviously, tax planning is a very important part of that, but you'll want to make sure that you check out all this information with your tax preparer as it pertains to your individual situation and see how you can take advantage of each of these items.
Well,
Perfect. I just went dark in here.
Lauren's light went off right as we transitioned her. It's like we couldn't have planned that, right?
You were putting her to sleep, I think.
Oh, shoot. Talk about taxes. People are falling asleep. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, what timing, but okay, well, we'll jump into our advisor panel. Before we do that, I did want to just give all of our attendees a little bit of a tip. If you want to view all of our screens, so all three of our speaker screens simultaneously while we do this panel, if you are viewing us from an iPad or a tablet, there is a plus sign on one of our speaker screens that you can click on, or you can also swipe left to access the gallery view. And then similarly, if you're on a mobile device, you can swipe left and that should bring you to our gallery view. And then lastly, if you're on a desktop device, in the top right corner, there should be a little view button. If you click that, there should be an option to enable the gallery view. So just in case you want to see all three of our faces while we're going through this panel, just wanted to make sure you guys had that pro tip. So we will go ahead and get started. The first question that we have for this panel is for Colin. When is the last day that clients can submit a QCD request for 2025?
Great question. So QCD stands for Qualified Charitable Distribution. And what that strategy is if you like to give to a nonprofit or your church, you can actually send that money directly from your traditional IRA to the charity. And the benefit of doing that is it doesn't go on your tax return as an income distribution. That money is given tax-free and it goes straight to the charity from your IRA. So it's a really good benefit, and it's a good question to consider because our partners at LPL would prefer that we have all of those requests submitted by December 5th. Now, if that's when they say they'll guarantee that it gets done, they'll send out the check in time. We've seen it work in the past that if we're a couple days late, it'll get out, but as close to that December 5th timeline as possible. So if you have not used all of your required minimum distribution or your RMD yet for 2025, you can still use a portion of that for a qualified charitable distribution. But the other reminder on that too is you have to be at least 70 and a half years old to take advantage of the qualified charitable distribution.
Got it. Tim, this next one is for you. Are DAFs a compelling year-end strategy?
Yes, definitely. And DAFs, that would be DAF, and that stands for Donor Advised Fund. And Colin had mentioned the qualified charitable distribution. That's a great way to gift. When you gift using the qualified charitable distribution, the gift occurs right away. In other words, you say you want to give $5,000 from your IRA, you want to donate it to your favorite nonprofit, that goes, it's a completed gift, and the charity receives those dollars. With a donor advised fund, similarly, any dollars you put into that new account that you would open, because it's a little different than the qualified charitable distribution in that regard. Donor advised fund is a new account that's opened. But similar to the qualified charitable distribution, any dollars you put into the donor advised funds, let's say it was $5,000, that is considered a completed gift as soon as it gets into the donor advised fund. Where it differs from the qualified charitable distribution is once it's in the donor advised fund, you have the ability then to distribute it whenever you would like. It does not have to be in the particular calendar year that you put the money into the donor advised fund. It doesn't have to be the next year or within any limitation. There actually is not one. So it provides a bit of a complement, I would say, to the qualified charitable distribution. Or if you are not yet of age for the qualified charitable distribution, you must be 70 and a half. You actually must achieve that age to do the qualified charitable distribution. There's no such age requirement for the donor advised fund. So we see that as a sometimes a distinguishing factor for folks when they want to open up a donor advised fund. So a lot goes into it, but that can be a great tool to not only help you on the tax return, but also continue to support and help your favorite nonprofit. So we'd be happy to sit down with you and discuss that further. Again, I would emphasize what Colin said. LPL has told us that they will ensure that anything they receive prior to December 5th is processed. However, anything after that, they cannot guarantee that just because of volume. So we always stress this time of year, and really the genesis for having the webinar when we're having it right now is we want to be out in front of that. The sooner we know, the better. If you have not completed your required minimum distribution yet, we need to get on that as soon as possible. If we've not done the qualified charitable distribution, or if we've not opened up the donor advised fund yet, we really need to get moving on those things to make sure that we can meet those year-end deadlines.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. These next, actually, 2 questions, Colin, are for you. So the first is going to be, how do I know if I've taken my RMD for the year? So that required minimum distribution.
Yeah, we like our acronyms in this industry, don't we? I think that's number 3 for those keeping track at home. But let's start off first with, how do I know if I have a required minimum distribution? So if you have a traditional IRA or traditional 401k account, and if you were born before 1960 and you've achieved the age of 73, you have an RMD to take this year. If you were born after 1960, you have to wait until you're 75. You're delayed a couple of years. They've pushed that age back over the last 5 or 6 years, about 4.5 years. So, and then the other instance that you would have an RMD is if you inherited either a Roth IRA or traditional IRA or 401k from a relative or a friend, and you have that inherited or beneficiary account now, you are more than likely required to take a distribution this year. So if you're unsure if you have to take one, reach out to your advisor. We'd be more than happy to assist you with that. There's a couple of other caveats. If it's your first year taking a distribution from your IRA or an RMD, you actually have until April 15th of next year to complete that distribution. The IRS says you, if it's your first year, we'll give you 4 more months to take it. The downside of doing that is now you have to take your 2025 RMD in 2026 and your 2026 RMD in the same year. So both those numbers will, or both of those distributions will flow through your tax return, and you'll have 2 in 1 year versus spreading it out. There might be a reason for that, but consult with your tax professional to make sure. Otherwise, if it's not your first year taking your RMD, you have until 12/31 of this year to get that done. Like Tim and I have mentioned a couple times now, we would encourage you to do that well before 12/31. So just get in contact with your advisor if you have not done so yet.
Great. And Colin, again, that the second question that we have is, when is the last day to make a contribution to a traditional or Roth IRA?
Great
Another
question.
acronym.
Yep, another acronym. Yep. So that deadline is tax filing deadline of next year. So if you have not maxed out your Roth IRA or traditional IRA yet, you have until April 15th or by the time you file your tax return to do so. Many folks do wait until next year to make a this year contribution if their income is close to the thresholds where they're not able to make contributions anymore, or maybe they're waiting for that year-end bonus to help cash flow that contribution instead. So you have until April 15th of next year, but even if you make a contribution in 2026, for 2025, you're still held to the 2025 limits. So if you're under the age of 50, that's 7,000. If you're over the age of 50, it's 8,000.
Perfect. Thank you, Colin. Tim, what is the benefit of bunching charitable distributions or contributions, excuse me?
Yeah, sometimes we'll meet with folks and they'll say, hey, we give $100 a quarter to 5 different charities. As generous, and in particular with clients that are over that age of 70 and a half, or even maybe more so for those who are needing to be taking their required minimum distributions right now. If instead of just writing a check or giving cash for those donations, you could fill out a form with us and take it directly from your IRA and make a qualified charitable distribution, that's really helpful. Where we have seen that work really well is, for example, let's take one organization in 2026 and bunch together 5 years worth of that $100 per quarter and fill out one form and send one amount. Our experience has been the more checks that are floating around and being sent out to these charities, the more likely for potential pitfalls. Checks get lost all the time on charities' desks. Reports don't get sent back. It becomes a bit of a tracking nightmare for you, and we don't want that. So to simplify things, that's just one example of many. There are certainly other ways to think about this too, even outside of folks who are in that age range where qualified charitable distributions help. But that's one that we ran across recently. It kind of can just make sense. It's a bit of a mindset shift, and you can even let the charity know, hey, we're going to kind of accelerate the next 5 years worth of giving for your charity. And then in 2027, we go to the second one. 2028, the third one. Certainly not something you have to do, but for those clients who like to support lots of charities, that can be a good way to think about it.
Yep. One other question, Tim, that maybe just will help clarify things. If you do a qualified charitable distribution from your IRA in 2026, can you also take the $2,000 charitable deduction?
That's a good question. And you always ask me the ones that I'm not sure on, Colin. But no, it's my understanding that because it's above the line, you still do get to take it along with the itemization. So you can kind of split that out if that were to be needed. So, but we'll double check that one to be sure before we're done. We'll circle back around to it. But good job, Colin. Now my turn next to ask you a hard question right now.
Let's hear it.
I'm kidding.
I have one for you, Colin, though. So when is the last day to convert monies from my traditional IRA to my Roth IRA, and what should be considered before doing this?
Great question. So what Lauren's mentioning is called a Roth conversion. And once you take pre-tax money from your traditional IRA, pay taxes on it now, and move it to your Roth IRA where it can grow tax deferred still. But then the benefit of doing that is once the money's in the Roth IRA, if you need to withdraw it in the future, it comes out tax-free too. So we work with a lot of folks across various age ranges utilizing that strategy, but there's a lot of considerations into it because once you move money out of the traditional IRA to the Roth IRA, that is counted as taxable income on your tax return. So, things like if you're taking an RMD this year and you want to convert, well, you have to take your required distribution first and then convert. So if you have a $10,000 distribution and you convert $40,000 afterwards, well, that's $50,000 flowing through the tax return. So that's one consideration. Others would be other income. If you're still working and you have money in a traditional IRA and you want to convert it to a Roth, well, will that additional money push you up to the next tax bracket? There's a bunch of tax considerations that you can work with either your advisor or probably even better your tax preparer to make sure you're doing it in a smart manner, because it is a very useful strategy and many folks do it. But unfortunately, some folks just think it's a matter of a signed form, all's good. There's a lot of back end tax pieces that we have to consider.
Good. Great. Tim, this one is for you, but what funds will be paying capital gains, and is it possible to get a yearly total before the end of the year?
Yes, absolutely. A number of funds potentially that clients own may or may not be paying a capital gain distribution. We try to limit that as best we can. Some do pay them, so definitely want to consult with your advisor, but it is indeed possible to get a list of not only the funds that are estimated to be paying those capital gains distributions, but what the estimated dollars would be. We can pretty much hone in and get relatively close, especially since we're down here close to the end of the year, on what that figure will be for tax planning purposes. Generally speaking, what I have found in taking in a lot of these estimates from the fund companies is this year will be a higher year than normal for capital gains distributions. Part of that, I believe, too, is due to the fact that we've had 6 out of the past 7 years that have been positive in equity markets, and so a lot of times then when these fund managers make sales, that gets passed through. There's obviously exceptions to that. If you own exchange traded funds, a lot of times that is not the case. More often than not, mostly, in fact, with exchange traded funds, we are not seeing capital gains distributions being paid out. However, if there was a rebalance in the account, or if you withdrew money throughout the year that may have realized capital gains, that you would want to be aware of on the tax return as well. One quick follow-up. I did my initial quick cursory search to double check us on that Charitable 2026 deduction. Colin says that it's for non-itemizers. So just to be aware of that. Again, that's about 90% of folks that $2,000 amount would apply, and that would make sense after just double checking it here. So just wanted to circle back around on that as well, Lauren.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that. Colin, when will 2025 tax documents be delivered?
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to go back to my last question because I realized I never answered your initial question, which was when do Roth conversions need to be done by? And that is the same December 5th timeline that LPL is going to ensure that those are done if they're submitted by December 5th. But yes, when will 2025 tax documents be delivered? Many of you like to get the return prepared early, and that's not a bad thing. Get it out of the way, peace of mind. You know you're done, you know your tax bill. But for retirement accounts, if you've taken a distribution from either a traditional or Roth IRA with us, your tax documents will have to be delivered to you by January 31st. That's only for retirement accounts. If you have a non-retirement account or an annuity and there's taxes due on any of that, well, those are usually a little bit later. Sometimes mid-February is about the earliest those go out. Depending on the securities you hold too, if there's anything a little bit more complex in there, that might be even until early March. So before you get antsy and decide to go get your tax return prepared, call your advisor to ensure that you have all the documents that you need. The other thing is if there was any account changes this year, if you moved your account from one platform to another because of the advice of your advisor, you might have a new tax form compared to last year too. So again, it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to have to amend a return if you do not have to.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines a little bit, Tim. Should I make an estimated tax payment before the end of the year?
That could be valuable. Just want to, again, consult with your tax person to see if that would be necessary. Part of what can go into that would be, yes, larger than normal gains flowing through the return. Perhaps you had higher income this year than previous years that you want to account for, but you'd have until January 15th to make that quarter four estimated payment to the federal government. State dates vary. I know in the state of Iowa, it's January 31st. So you do have a little bit of time on that front, which is nice. But oftentimes that can help offset and make for maybe less tax surprises come the tax filing deadline in 2026.
Great. Yeah. Tim, I know another question that we get asked is often, will someone owe an extra premium on their Medicare Part B this year?
Yeah, something to definitely be aware of. So again, 65 and older, if you're on Medicare, you want to be paying very close attention to your adjusted gross income. So for this year, if you're a single filer and your income is above 106,000, then there is a likelihood that in 2027 you will pay a higher Part B premium on your Medicare. So we want to be mindful of that. Again, it triggers it in a given year, but it doesn't really impact you until 2 years later. So if we take a look in the rearview mirror back to 2023, if the 2023 adjusted gross income was 97,000 or above, then it would be this year that you have felt potentially that higher Part B premium. So married filing jointly, 212,000 is the figure for 2025. And again, looking backwards, it's 194,000 for 2023. So that is an important planning component. We can do, hopefully we can do as much as we can to avoid keeping that below that level. Sometimes it's unavoidable depending on your income levels, and you just have to bite the bullet and pay pay the extra premium. But that's one thing, again, that we would love to do planning with you on to try to avoid any surprises, because again, that 2-year gap, we tend to forget. We make good notes on your behalf, but it can be something, if you're not planning for it, that you would forget about. Us as humans, we tend to, 2 years later, it's out of sight, out of mind, and then boom, it kind of pops up. So happy to chat more with you individually about that one as well.
Great. Colin, this next question is for you. When is the last day to make contributions to my children's or my grandchildren's education accounts? So 529s, Coverdell.
Yeah, great question. To make the contribution for 2025, it's the same as traditional Roth IRA contributions. You can do that up until April 15th of next year for this year. Again, other tax considerations go into that. Because 529s can be a tax deductible contribution, some folks wait until early next year to see how the tax bill is going to work out, to see if it makes sense to make those contributions. So still have plenty of time until April to do that. Consult with your tax preparer or your advisor if you think that's something you want to look into.
Thanks. Tim, what is the most overlooked year-end tax strategies that someone could still take advantage of here in 2025?
Have kids. I am apparently good at that one. Okay, so you get them in there and you get the tax credit for them. I tell my wife, let's time it up so we get another tax credit, right? No, I wasn't even actually in my notes, but that certainly would be one. So don't overlook it. Good overlooked year-end tax strategies. Donations is a huge one. So you have until 12/31 to make the donation to the organization, and that can really help out potentially on your tax return. Like I said earlier, increasing your contributions to your retirement accounts. If it's a 401k, certainly pre-tax contributions, that will help between now and the end of the year on the tax return, reducing your taxable income. If you perhaps are contributing to a traditional IRA, that could also help. Just be mindful of the restrictions, income restrictions, and limitations there. I would say another one would be HSAs. So health savings accounts can be a great way to get a triple tax advantage in that regard. And so happy to talk more with you about that if that's applicable to you. Must have a high deductible health plan in order for that to apply. Obviously, that rules out some folks. But those would be the ones I think some good year-end tax strategies potentially.
Great. And just one quick reminder, we are coming up. We have a few more questions, a little bit more time for those. So if you have any final questions, make sure to send those to the info@harvestpointwm.com email address. But we will just keep rolling here. Colin, is now a good time to review estate plans and beneficiary designations?
Do you sit in our meetings with us, Lauren? I'm sure most of these people on this webinar are just rolling their eyes at you right now. No, it's always a good time to think about the beneficiaries as well as your estate plan. So if you meet with your advisor regularly, that's one thing we always review with you is here's how your beneficiaries are listed on your accounts with us. But as a friendly reminder, it's always good to double check those accounts that we don't oversee. Bank accounts, retirement plans, life insurance policies, anything you can think of. If it has a beneficiary designation, that is the best thing you can have for that next generation or whoever's going to receive those assets. As far as estate planning documents go, like wills, powers of attorney, or trusts, if those are older than 5 to 7 years, it would be a good idea to have an estate planning attorney review those for you. There's been some HIPAA law changes, at least here in the state of Iowa recently, that might warrant some necessary change within your documents. So if you have an attorney that you've used in the past, go check with them, see if they think anything needs updated. If you're unsure of where to start, get into contact with us. We have a handful of folks that we would gladly pass along their information to you.
Perfect. Tim, should someone consider tax loss harvesting right now?
Yes, potentially so. I think the problem that you might run into is, quite frankly, there's not a lot of losses out there right now. Obviously, it depends on what positions you hold, and maybe you have some. But as we look at that globally, there's not many losses. Things are kind of, as I mentioned, with the growth that we've had in recent years, there's actually a lot of gains right now that are embedded in a lot of holdings for our clients. So yes, certainly if you can find them, that could be a useful strategy to sell and receive a loss, and then potentially, as long as you abide by the rules, reinvest after a certain period of time, and capture that loss. One other related idea that I would just mention would be something that could be called a charity swap. So let's say you want to give a charity $10,000 this year, and you have saved up some cash, and you want to make a very generous donation to a charity. If also in conjunction, you have a stock or equity position that has increased in value substantially, you could, instead of giving the $10,000 in cash, you could transfer in kind and gift the stock to the charity in the amount of $10,000, corresponding number of shares. Charity gets the $10,000 that you were originally going to give them, and then you turn around with the $10,000 and you purchase the stock. Effectively, you have now increased your basis in that position to whatever the price per share is as of the time you do that now, and you've eliminated a portion of that highly appreciated security. So that charity swap concept can be a great thing to check into, kind of again a crossroads of finance and generosity in that regard. So happy to discuss that idea with you if that sounds like something that you want to take advantage of.
Great. Okay, so since we only have a couple more minutes here with everyone, just two more questions. Colin, one for you. If someone hasn't maxed out their HSA and they have additional funds, is this a good bucket to fill?
Yeah, like Tim mentioned earlier, the HSA is called a health savings account, and you can only contribute to one if you have a high deductible health insurance plan through your employer. But yes, I think the health savings account is probably the best vehicle you can use for later in life savings. It's triple taxed. It has triple tax advantages, meaning any contributions that go in are tax deferred. The growth within the account is tax free as long as you use the dollars for qualified medical expenses. And then same thing with the distributions. When you have to go pay for medical distributions or medical expenses or reimburse yourself for them, all those dollars come out to you tax free. So yes, it's the only account out there that has all three of those tax advantages. And I just pulled up the limits for this year. So if you have the ability to contribute to an HSA in 2025, if you're just for yourself, it's $4,300. If it's for your family, it's $8,550. For 2026, it's $4,400 if it's self only, or for family, it's $8,750. So if you have the ability to contribute to one and you got the little bit extra cash sitting around, I would highly encourage it, because as we all know in life, there's a couple of things that are guaranteed: death, taxes, and everybody's going to have some sort of medical expense in their life.
Love it. Tim, what are some creative ways I could use the $19,000 annual gift exclusion to benefit my loved ones?
Yes, contrary to much of what we've touched on today, when you gift money to loved ones, unfortunately, you do not get a tax deduction. So I would love that, because then maybe I would give my kids a little bit of money to try to set aside for them. But that is not an availability. It would only be if you're giving it to nonprofit organizations, where you would then be able to get a tax deduction. But what we have seen work well for many clients is to try to plant a seed and begin to almost teach about generosity, kind of invite kids and grandkids into that journey. We've seen clients use that $19,000 annual gift exclusion amount. It certainly doesn't need to be up to that amount. It could be to say you take $1,000 and you set it aside for a kid or a grandkid, and you say, okay, I'm going to gift you this money, but the restriction is you get to gift it. So it's an opportunity for you to come together with your loved one and watch perhaps a seed kind of begin to hopefully grow in their lives as it pertains to generosity, and do that together. And particularly around the holidays, that can be a special thing to do, to just establish that as a part of your plan, and then be able to make that known or aware at your holiday gatherings with your kids or grandkids. And then in the year that follows, be able to kind of walk down that journey together, and maybe even ask them perhaps for a little bit of an executive summary or a report on what they did with it and the impact that maybe it made.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. And then the last question, final of the webinar, is for you, Tim. And it's actually from your family. Dad, when are you coming home? And can we have a bite of your cake right now?
See, I told you they're ready for the cake. So that's, we only got a few more hours. You got to wait, I guess, girls. So I'm glad they're probably throwing food at the screen and screaming and yelling. It's a good thing that we have this on the webinar setting so we don't have the background noise for that. That would be bad. But yes. Hi, girls. Love you.
Perfect.
And boy, wait, I have to say boy now too. Yeah, I'm out of practice doing that. He doesn't really know, but anyway, yeah, girls and boy.
Love it. Okay, we have one quick reminder here for a quick save the date. We do have our next webinar is going to be on January 22nd at noon again. So we love hosting these webinars with you all over the lunch hour. So hopefully you can attend. We will have an official invite being sent out through our email as well as on our social channels. So feel free to look there and catch us on January 22nd as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending. There will be a brief survey after this webinar, so feel free to fill that out. It really helps us plan ahead and know what webinars you guys want to see more of, as well as different topics. So please take some time, fill that out, and we would be grateful to see those results. So thank you, and it is truly a privilege to serve you. Have a great rest of your day.